Listen, not really, they don't. They wouldn't let me see you for a while, I told him. But it's worked out, so here I am. He looked hurt. He was nibbling on his lower lip and staring down at his canvas prison shoes. Suddenly, his face contorted and he laughed loudly. The sound echoed through the small cell. Soniji Murphy leaned closer to me. "You know, you're really just another dumb bastard," he said. "So fucking easy to manipulate. Just like all the others before you. Smart, but not smart enough." I stared at him, surprised, maybe a little shocked. "The lights are on, but there's nobody home," he commented on the expression that must have been on my face. "No, I'm here," I said. "I just underestimated you more than I should have. My mistake." "Caught up with reality, have we?" The terrible smirk remained across his face. "You sure you understand? You sure, Dr. Detective?" Of course I understood. I had just met Gary Soniji for the very first time. We had just been introduced by Gary Murphy. The process is called rapid cycling. The kidnapper was staring out at me. He was gloating, showing off, being himself for the first time with me. The child murderer sat before me, the brilliant mimic and actor, the 99th percentile, the son of Lindbergh. All of those things and probably more. "You okay?" he asked. He was mimicking my earlier concern for him. "You feeling all right, Doctor?" "I'm just great. No problem at all," I said. "Really? You don't seem okay to me." "Something's wrong, isn't it, Alex?" Now he seemed deeply concerned. "Hey, listen." I finally raised my voice. "Fuck off, Soniji. How's that for reality testing?" "Wait a minute." He shook his head back and forth. The wolfish grin had disappeared just as suddenly as it had appeared a moment before. "Why are you calling me Soniji? What is this, Doctor? What's going on?" I watched his face, and I could not believe what I was seeing. He'd changed again. Snap! Gary Soniji was gone. He'd changed personas 2, maybe 3 times in a matter of minutes. "Gary Murphy?" I tested. He nodded. "Who else? Seriously, Doctor, what's the matter? What is going on? You go away for weeks. Now you're back." "Tell me what just happened," I said. I continued to stare at him. "Just now, tell me what you think just happened." He looked confused, totally baffled by my question. If all of this was an act, it was the most brilliantly awesome and convincing performance I had ever seen in my years as a shrink. "I don't understand. You come here to my cell. You seem a little tense. Maybe you were embarrassed because you haven't been around lately. Then you call me Soniji, completely out of the blue. That's not supposed to be funny, is it?" Was he serious now? Was it possible he didn't know what had happened less than 60 seconds ago? Or was this Gary Soniji still play-acting with me? Could he be slipping in and out of his fugue state so easily and so seamlessly? It could be, but it was rare. In this case, it could create an unbelievable mockery of a courtroom trial. It could even get Soniji Murphy off. Was that his plan? Had it been his escape valve right from the beginning? Chapter 56. When she worked with the others, picking fruits and vegetables on the side of the mountain, Maggie Rose tried to remember how it had been back home. At first, her list, the things she remembered, was basic and very general. Most of all, she missed her mother and father so much. She missed them every minute of every day. She also missed her friends at school, especially Shrimpy. She missed Dookadoo, her fresh little boy kitten, and Angel, her sweet little boy kitten, and Nintendo games and her clothes closet. Having parties after school was so great. So was taking a bath in the 3rd-floor room over the gardens. The more she thought about home, though, the more she remembered, the more Maggie Rose improved her memory list. She missed the way she sometimes would get between her mother and father when they hugged or kissed. "We 3, she called it. She missed characters her father had enacted for her, mostly when she was little. There was Hank, a big southern drawling father who loved to exclaim, Who's talking to you? There was Susie Wooderman. Susie was the star of anything Maggie wanted to be in her father's stories. There was the primal ritual whenever they had to get into the car in cold weather. They would all holler at the top of their voices, "Yuck, chuck, chuck! Chucka, chucka, yuck, chuck, chuck!" Her mother would make up songs and sing them to her. Her mother had sung to her ever since she could remember. She sang, "I love you so much, Maggie. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. Nothing in the whole wide world." Maggie would sing, "Will you take me to Disneyland?" Her mom would answer, "I would do that, Maggie Rose." "Would you give Duke-a-Doo a big kiss on the mouth?" "I'd do it for you, Maggie Rose. There's nothing I wouldn't do." Maggie could remember whole days she had spent in school, going from class to class. She remembered Ms. Kim's special winks for her. She remembered when Angel would curl up in a chair and sweetly make a sound like, "Wow." "I'd do anything for you, dear, anything, 'cause you mean everything to me." Maggie could still hear her mom singing the words to her. "Would you please come and take me home?" Maggie sang inside her head. "Would you please come?" But no one sang anything. Not anymore. No one ever sang to Maggie Rose. No one remembered her anymore. Or so she believed in her broken heart. Chapter 57. I met with Saniji Murphy half a dozen times over the next 2 weeks. He wouldn't let me get close to him again, though he claimed this wasn't so. Something had changed. I'd lost him. Both of him. On the 15th of October, a federal judge ordered a stay, temporarily halting the commencement of the kidnapping trial. This was to be the final of several delaying tactics by Saniji Murphy's defense lawyer, Anthony Nathan. Within 1 week, lightning speed for this kind of complex legal maneuvering, Judge Linda Kaplan had denied the defense requests. Requests for injunctions and restraining orders to the Supreme Court were also denied. Nathan called the Supreme Court a very organized lynch mob on all 3 TV networks. The fireworks were just beginning, he said to the press. He'd established a tone for the trial. On the 27th of October, the trial of the State versus Murphy began. At 5 minutes to 9 that morning, Sampson and I headed for a back entrance into the federal building on Indiana Avenue. As best we could, we were traveling incognito. "You want to lose some money?" Sampson said as we turned the corner onto Indiana. "I hope you're not talking about wagering money on the outcome of this kidnapping and murder trial." "Sure am, sweet pie. Make the time pass faster." "What's the bet?" Sampson lit a Corona and took a victory puff. I say he goes to St. Elizabeth's, some hospital for the criminally insane. That's the bet." "You're saying that our judicial system doesn't work." "I believe it in every bone of my body, especially this time around." "All right. I'll take guilty. 2 counts kidnapping, guilty murder 1. Sampson took another victory puff. "You want to pay me now? 50 be an acceptable amount for you to lose?" "50's fine with me. You got a bet. Get it on. I love to take what little money you have." Out front on 3rd Street, a crowd of a couple of thousand surrounded the main courthouse entrance. Another 200 people, including 7 rows of reporters, were already inside. The prosecutor had tried to bar the press, but it had been denied. Somebody had printed up signs, and they were everywhere. "Maggie Rose is alive." People were handing out roses at the trial site. Up and down Indiana Avenue, volunteers circulated with the free roses. Others sold commemorative pennants. Most popular of all were the small candles that people burned in the windows of their homes as remembrances of Maggie Rose. A handful of reporters were waiting at the back entrance, which is reserved for deliveries, as well as for a few shy judges and lawyers. Most veteran cops who come to the courthouse and don't appreciate the crowds also choose the back gate. Microphones were immediately pushed at me and Sampson. TV camera lenses gawked. Neither instrument fazed us anymore. Detective Cross, is it true that you were cut out of the case by the FBI? No, I have an okay relationship with the FBI. Are you still seeing Gary Murphy at Lawton, Detective? That makes it sound as if we're dating. It's not that serious yet. I'm part of a team of doctors who see him. Are there racial overtones in this case as it relates to you? There are racial overtones to a lot of things, I guess. There's nothing special here. The other detective? Detective Sampson? You agree, sir? A young dude in a bow tie asked. Well, sir, yourself. We're going in the back door, aren't we? We're the back door men. Sampson grinned for the camera. He didn't take off his shades. We finally made it to a service elevator and tried to keep the reporters out of the same car, which wasn't easy. We have a confirmed rumor that Anthony Nathan is going for a temporary insanity plea. Any comment on that? None at all. Ask Anthony Nathan. Detective Cross, will you take the stand to say Gary Murphy isn't insane? The ancient doors finally shut. The elevator started to rumble up toward the 7th floor. 7th heaven, as it's known in the trade. The 7th had never been quieter or more under control. The usual train station scene of policemen, young thugs and their families, hardened crooks, lawyers and judges had been stemmed by an order restricting the floor to the single case. This was the big one. Trial of the century. Wasn't that the way Gary Sinigi wanted it? In the absence of chaos, the Fed building was like an elderly person rising from bed in the morning. All the wrinkles and bruises were visible in the early morning light that streamed from cathedral windows on the east side of the floor. We arrived just in time to see the prosecutor enter the courtroom. Mary Warner was a diminutive 36-year-old U.S. attorney from the 6th Circuit. She was supposed to be the courtroom equal of defense lawyer Anthony Nathan. Like Nathan, she had never tasted defeat, at least not in any significant case. Mary Warner had a glowing reputation, but tireless preparation and faultless, highly persuasive courtroom demeanor. A losing opponent had said, "It's like playing tennis with somebody who always hits it back. Your best spin shot, back it comes. Your gamer, it comes back. Sooner or later, she beats you into the ground." Supposedly, Ms. Warner had been handpicked by Gerald Goldberg, and Goldberg could have had any prosecutor he chose. He had chosen her over James Dowd and other early favorites for the job. Carl Monroe was there, too. Mayor Monroe couldn't stay away from the crowds. He saw me, but didn't come over, just flashed a patented smile across the broad concourse. If I hadn't known exactly where I stood with him, I did now. My appointment to divisional chief would be my last upgrade. They'd done that to prove I had been a good choice for the hostage rescue team, to validate their decision, and to cover up any possible questions about my conduct in Miami. Leading up to the trial day, the big news around Washington had been that Secretary of the Treasury Goldberg was working on the prosecution case himself. That, and Anthony Nathan being the defense attorney. Nathan had been described in the Post as a ninja warrior in court. He had regularly been making front-page news since the day he'd been retained by Sinigi Murphy. Nathan was a subject that Gary wouldn't talk to me about. On one occasion he'd said, "I need a good lawyer, don't I?" Mr. Nathan convinced me. He'll do the same for the jury. He's extremely cunning, Alex. Cunning? I asked Gary if Nathan was as smart as he was. Gary smiled and said, "Why do you always say I'm smart when I'm not? If I was so smart, would I be here?" He hadn't strayed once from the Gary Murphy persona in weeks. He'd also declined to be hypnotized again. I watched Gary's super lawyer, Anthony Nathan, as he obnoxiously swaggered around the front of the courtroom. He was certainly manic, widely known for infuriating witnesses during cross-examination. Did Gary have the presence of mind to select Nathan? What had drawn the two of them together? In one way, though, it seemed a natural pairing. A borderline madman defending another madman. Anthony Nathan had already publicly proclaimed, "This will be an absolute zoo. A zoo or a Wild West frontier justice show, I promise you. They can sell tickets